Hey guys, what's going on? It's Andrew from AR Media. In tonight's video, I want to do an A24 collection video. Now, for those who don't know, A24 is a film distributor that I've become a huge fan of and really fell in love with all the releases that they've come out with since their launch in 2012-2013. So I've started collecting their Blu-rays, trying to get my hands on as many slips as possible. So I wanted to go over my collection with you guys so far. So I'm going to go over these relatively quick because I don't want to make this video too long and I have a lot of titles. So we're going to start out with my 4K titles, and that's going to be Moonlight and Ex Machina. Now, both of these movies really grip me, and I really like both of them for different reasons. I liked Ex Machina's new approach to AI. I think Oscar Isaac gave it an amazing performance, same with Alicia Vikander, and Alex Garland really showed his directing skills in this movie. He went on to direct Annihilation, which I also loved, and I just thought this was a great sci-fi movie. Now, Moonlight, for those who haven't seen, is a coming-of-age that shows 3 different points in a black man's life growing up. It is a gripping, emotional tale, very gut-wrenching, and did win Picture of the Year and definitely deserved that, and really put A24 on the map with that. Next, we have American Honey. Now, this follows the crew of a magazine crew on the road, traveling the U.S., selling magazines, making very little money. It stars Shia LaBeouf and Sasha Lane, and this is one of the most realistic movies I have ever seen, and that's what I really like about this movie. You just feel like you're watching someone else's day-to-day life. You don't feel like you're watching a movie at all. It kind of reminds me of Kids from 1995. It's very uncensored. Shia LaBeouf gives a great performance, and definitely a must-watch. Next, we have Room. Now, this also created a ton of Oscar buzz and won a lot of awards, including Brie Larson, which she definitely deserved. I would go into this movie knowing as little as possible, like I did. This is a gut-wrenching movie, an emotional movie as well, and one of A24's best, in my opinion. This movie absolutely floored me and is close to film perfection. Next, we have a more recent title from them, and that's Free Fire. Now, this was a blind buy for me, but a lot of these A24 ones are blind buys because I just have a lot of faith in them as a distribution company, and I was not disappointed with this. This is an old school style shoot 'em up, very much like Reservoir Dogs, but basically Reservoir Dogs on crack. A lot of great jokes on this, tons of action in this, and Armie Hammer I found to be pretty hilarious in this. Really liked his role, worth checking out for sure, and an underrated A24 film. Next, we have the Bling Ring. Now, this is about a group of teenagers that was robbing houses like Paris Hilton. This is based on a true story. Another good film by A24, definitely fits in with their motif. Next up, we have The Spectacular Now, and I actually just saw this for the first time a couple of days ago, and this blew me away. It starts out, you're starting to think it's just a normal rom-com, but it goes in a lot more directions. Very genuine performances from Miles Teller here, and really just a great story overall. Really happy I picked this one up. Next, we have Woodshock. Now, this is a trip of a movie, and it's a hard one to recommend. I would not say it's the best movie, and I would say it's one of A24's weaker movies that they've distributed so far, but it stars Kirsten Dunst in this trippy, hallucinatory state, smoking some laced weed. She goes through some things in this movie, and it's definitely more of a visual experience than a cohesive story, but personally, I did enjoy it for the visuals. Next, we have Good Time. Now, this was one of my favorite movies of last year. Robert Pattinson's performance in this was phenomenal. The Safdie brothers directing did a great job of this, and this also just felt like a very realistic movie, very gross and gritty movie. You're not going to necessarily like the characters in this at all, but the thing is, it's very true to its plot, and the characters just feel so realistic in this. It's a gripping story from start to finish. Your eyes will be glued to the screen. Next, we have First Reform. Now, I did a review of this recently, so I'm not going to go over this too much, but so far, this is one of my favorite of the year. I think this is a fantastic story, fantastic performances, and highly recommend this if you're into suspense or thrillers at all. Next, we have Hereditary. Now, this is actually my #1 and favorite of the year. This is a horror masterpiece in my eyes. I just did a review of this, so I won't go over this too much, but I definitely recommend you go out and see this if you're a horror fan at all. Amazing performances, amazing film. Next, we have a lesser-known title, and that's The Vanishing of Sidney Hall. Now, when I read reviews of this, I was pretty hesitant on picking it up, and then I watched it, and I really like this movie. It's kind of like a retelling of like a Holden Caulfield kind of character, an author who writes a book that's very influential on a generation, and it's just the story about himself, about him losing himself, and about him being found. And it's just a really good movie. It wouldn't be really a suspense or thriller or anything, but a great mystery for those who enjoy those type of movies. Next we have The Captive. So this was actually a blind buy. I'm glad I found this with the slip. Was surprised about that. I saw this a couple years back and enjoyed it. I do want to revisit it though because I haven't seen it in a while, and I really like the setting of this movie, so I'm pumped to give this one a watch. Next we have Tusk. Now a lot of people do not like this film and think it is A24's worst film or one of A24's worst films, and I actually enjoy this, but I guess that's because I'm a fan of horror, and especially B horror, as in very cheesy horror, because this movie has elements of true horror for sure, but the thing is, right around the halfway point, it completely changes gear, and I mean, it's about a guy who gets turned into a tusk, and it is very disturbing at points and will disturb you more than you think, but I personally really enjoy this movie and think it is some of Kevin Smith's best work. Next we have The Disaster Artist. Now this was one of my favorites of last year as well. This is the true story of the making of The Room, starring both of the Franco brothers. Both give amazing performances, specifically James Franco as Tommy Wiseau. I thought all the jokes landed phenomenally in here, but what they really did was they also caught the heartwarmingness of the story, and really it was a heartfelt story. It did not all poke fun at it, which is what really made me love this movie. Sorry guys, I know this one is long, but there are a lot of Blu-rays to cover. So the next one is The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Now this actually was on my list of my favorite movies of last year. This is a movie that's very much out there and is very disturbing. It very much relies on Greek mythology. Yorgos Lanthimos as a director is very good at putting dread on screen and making you feel uncomfortable, and that's what this film does. It's a hard film to recommend, but it is a favorite of mine, and the performances and cinematography are out of this world. Next up we have The Blackouts Daughter, which also made it on my top 10 list of last year's video. This is a great horror, great slow burn thriller. If you're at all into horror movies like The Witch, I would definitely check this one out when you get a chance. Emma Roberts also gives a great performance. Next we have It Comes at Night. Now I actually was expecting a bit more out of this A24 title. Not that I don't like it, I just think they could have done a bit more with it. I think they relied on dream sequences a bit much, but I do like this movie. For anybody who's a fan of slow burn horror or suspense, definitely one to add to the collection and definitely one to check out. Next up we have Lady Bird. Now this was a great coming of age story, and I'm a big fan of Greta Gerwig from her performances in Frances Ha, her performances in even No Strings Attached, and this is her directorial debut, and you can really tell her personality interjected into this story. It is a great heartwarming story, one that could really mesh with anybody. I highly recommend anybody see this, no matter what genre you're a fan of. I think you'll get something out of this movie. Next we have one of my favorite A24 films, and that's The Florida Project. Now this is again one of the most realistic movies I've ever seen. So this tells the story of the people living outside of Disney in the motels, very run down, living in poverty, but living on the outskirts of someplace so beautiful. And the thing is, the difference in this movie is you're seeing it from the eyes of the kids. So you're seeing how wonderful everything, how playful everything, and how much of a good time they have, when the sad part is the dark reality they're living in. This is a great movie, amazing performances. William Dafoe is great, and really a gut-wrenching, sad movie, but one that has to be seen in my opinion. Next up we have a lesser known A24, and that's Obvious Child, starring Jenny Slate. Now I knew Jenny Slate from Parks and Recreation as John Ralphio's sister, and I thought she was really funny in this movie. It was a good rom-com that doesn't really hit on the normal beats of a rom-com. It's about abortion, and I think it handles the topic well. I think if you're bored, this is a good movie to throw on, kill some time, and have a good time with. Next we have While We're Young. Now I'm a big Noah Baumbach fan, and he made Frances Ha, he made The Squid and the Whale, so I had to see this one when it came out, and it didn't disappoint. Ben Stiller gives a great performance, Naomi Watts as well. They star as an older couple who's kind of having a midlife crisis. They meet these younger couple who kind of give some life into them, but it shows perspective on things, and I think it's a good film, and one that's also a more laid-back watch. Next up, we have Lean on Pete. Now, this is a recent pickup for me, and it was a blind buy because of A24, and I really enjoyed this one. I think the performances were out of this world on this one. But the thing is with this is you really have to be in the mood to watch it. I found this to be an extremely depressing movie, an extremely sad movie. Such bad things just keep happening to the person in this movie. But the performances and the arc of the character overall definitely made it worth the watch. Next, we have A Ghost Story, and that definitely fits into the same category of you got to be in the mood to watch it, because this is definitely a sad movie, very long takes. Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. Rooney Mara specifically gives a standout performance. One scene, she's eating pie for over 5 minutes straight in one take. I mean, this movie is a great display of how grief works, how time works, and there is one sequence in this movie that I think is one of the most magical sequences in any film I've ever seen, and for anybody who's seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. This is an amazing A24 film and really shows what they encompass as a whole. Next up, we have The Witch. Now, this was a big A24 hit and a nice slow burn horror that I absolutely loved. Now, a lot of people went into this expecting some jump scares, and that's definitely not what you got here. You got a slow burn horror. It put Anya Taylor-Joy on the map, who is now a great almost horror icon at this point, and this is one of the best horror movies in the last 10 years for sure. A must watch for all horror fans. And alright, we're on the home stretch. So next we got The Monster. Now this is the lesser known A24 film as well, a suspense thriller / horror, and I had a good time with this. Stars Zoe Kazan, the same person from The Big Sick, the girl from The Big Sick, and it shows dynamics between a mother and a daughter in some stressful situations. Recommend the movie, but not A24's best. Next, we have Green Room. Now, this is such a tense movie, and one of Anton Yelchin's last movies. Rest in peace, Anton Yelchin. This is a suspense movie, not really a horror at all, but a suspense thriller that will have you on the edge of your seat for the entire time. I don't want to spoil anything. Go out and see this movie. It is a thrill ride. Next, we have Into the Forest. Now, this was not my favorite A24 movie, because I just feel like it could have went a lot more places. They really set this movie up great. The environment's great. The advanced tech is great. I mean, this movie is kind of about the end of the world, the apocalypse, all powers out, and it's about how the world is moving forward and how these two sisters are surviving. And it's still a good movie, still captivating performance here, but nothing to really write home about in terms of A24. Next, we have Enemy. This is one of my favorite A24 releases by a long shot. Jake Gyllenhaal, one of my favorite actors, gives a great performance. Was really happy to find the slip on this one. This is about Jake Gyllenhaal seeing a double of himself and trying to track down that double. And this is definitely a mind trick of a movie. This is Denis Villeneuve, and this movie definitely falls in line with his other releases like Arrival, where it will definitely bring you for a trip and have you wowed by the end. Next, we have the first A24 film to really put A24 on the map at all, and that is Spring Breakers with James Franco. And I actually think this is one of the most misunderstood movies of the 20th century, because everybody thinks this is just a ridiculous movie with tons of girls in bikinis, tons of EDM music, and James Franco acting like a ridiculous rapper. But this is a bit more actually a commentary on youth culture right now, and this is written by the same guy who wrote Kids in 1995, and definitely has a feel to it like that. There's a lot of repetitiveness in this movie. Some scenes repeat themselves, some lines repeat themselves, but the thing is, that's how EDM works, and that's how the culture works, and I liked how true and original this movie was. There's just a lot to dissect in this movie, and I know on the surface value it may seem dumb, but give this another watch and really dig a bit deeper, and you may enjoy it more. And the last two I sadly don't have a slip for yet, and that is Under the Skin. This is what turned me on to A24, one of these movies. I think this has a very much Kubrickian feel to it, great cinematography, amazing encounters between Scarlett Johansson and these runner-bys, because these are actually genuine encounters with hidden cameras inside the vehicle. I'm not going to go over the plot at all because I do not want to ruin this movie, but this is a great suspense thriller as well. Scarlett Johansson knocks it out of the park as usual. And last but not least, we have Swiss Army Man. The Swiss Army Man took me by surprise because I did not know what to expect, and A Farting Corpse was not what I really expected, and the soundtrack was phenomenal, the acting was phenomenal, and just what this says about life is phenomenal. We're holding in the farts, we're hiding the farts. Why are we hiding some of these things in? When can we be open with people? And, you know, why does humanity have some of these stigmas we have where we're hiding things from people and we can't express emotion? And this dives deep into that in a funny way, and I love the score, the Daniels brothers film debut, and really, really great movie. Now guys, as you can see, I'm really gushing over A24. I've really loved everything they've done so far. I'm still tracking down a bunch more A24 releases because I still don't have my hands on it. But let me know down below your favorite A24 releases. Let me know if you guys are a fan of the studio, and I'll see you guys in the next one.